everybody, and welcome to the Hacienda. Rivet here. Glad you could join me. I'm happy to see you all here. And today we're going to make something fantastic. We're going to depart a little bit from the seafood and the barbecue and stuff. We're going to make Mexican chilaquiles. And what are chilaquiles? Well, all my life I've always called them breakfast nachos, because essentially that's what they are. But that's not doing them justice. That's a little bit harsh. But anyway, chilaquiles are essentially that. They're nachos. But in Mexico, they're only served for breakfast or brunch. And there are about as many variations of chilaquiles as there are babushkas in any town in the Ukraine, as there are grandmothers in any village in Mexico. But the ubiquitous dish always features tortilla chips, Mexican crema, sauce, and chili peppers. Okay, you can have avocado, you can have beans, you can add eggs, you can have dried beef, and in this case we're going to use dried beef, which is essentially beef jerky, to make my version. But anyway, this is an interesting backstory of chilaquiles. Chilaquiles were eaten in Mexico long before the Europeans arrived here. When Cortez came to Mexico, he had a friar, a Padre, known as Bernardino De Sayagun, who was a chronicler. And he was in charge of converting the people to Christianity and chronicling the voyage. And he wrote that in Nahuatl, which was the language that the Aztecs spoke, they called it Chilaquilitl. And that comes from Chilatl, which means chili water, and Quilitl, which means edible plant. And they were eating this stuff when the Spaniards arrived in the 1400s, so they must have been eating it for hundreds of years prior to that. Now, Bernardino de Sayagun ended up writing 2,400 pages of the chronicles of the real-time history of the Aztecs when they were there. And his writings and his observations serve as the basis of everything we know pretty much about the Aztecs today. It turned out into 12 volumes known as the General History of Things in New Spain. And he was a brilliant man in that he chronicled everyday life. He wanted to know what the people wore, what they ate, why they ate, things like that. So that's why we have this massive amount of details on the foods and clothing and drinks and everyday life of the Aztecs. So anyway, we're going to make chilaquiles today, and we're going to start out by making the corn tortilla chips. So join me and we'll go from there. Alright, for starters, what we want to do is we want to cut our corn tortillas into quarters like this, and we're going to bake them in a 400-degree oven for 8 to 10 minutes until they're browned. Now, the other version of chilaquiles is you can fry them in oil. I'm not a big fan of fried foods, so I'm going to bake them and make them toasty. Alright, and while the tortillas are roasting in the oven, I'm snacking on the original guaca chip from El Sabroso Snack Company out of Los Angeles. These are guacamole flavored tortilla chips. They look disgustingly alien green. Oh my god, this looks like something out of ZZ Top's TV Dinners video back in the 80s or 90s, if y'all remember that. But I will say, they taste pretty damn good. So, if you run into these, close your eyes, stick them in your mouth. They're pretty good. Alright, so after about 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes, the chips look like this. And this is how you want them. Okay, over medium-high heat, we're going to take the tomatoes, tomatillos, chili peppers, onions, garlic, and all that good stuff. And we're going to roast them until they turn nicely black and charred pretty much all over the place. All right. Right, now that we have all the vegetables ground up from the Cuisinart, the food processor, we added some water, chicken bouillon cubes, salt and pepper, and we're gonna boil it like this for half an hour. Okay, so here we go. We got the taco chips in a bowl, and again, as I said, you can either make them fried or toasted, and there are as many variations of this recipe as are there babchkas in a Ukrainian village. So there are certain things that are must-haves, and the must-haves are the sauce, which I am pouring here now over them, which you saw me make. We're using some melty cheese, and in this case I'm using queso Oaxaca. Now the Aztecs had a lot of cheese, different types, and although they didn't have cattle, they did get milk from jabalí, which was the local pork-like animal. Possums, they milked that. They tried to milk the North American condor, but Sayagun says that didn't work out very well. And they also milked wild jaguars and ocelots. Records say that wild jaguars were much harder to milk than the ocelots because they were bigger and more fierce. But Sayagun says that they found a way to tame the ocelots by holding them very tightly and scratching them behind their ears until they started purring, and then they were much more susceptible to milking. So they had cheese. All right. So we got the melty cheese. Now we have the queso fresco, which is de rigueur for chilaquiles. So if you don't have queso fresco, don't make chilaquiles. All right. Now, as I mentioned, there was many thousands of variations of chilaquiles, and they are a breakfast or a brunch meal. And one of the versions is using salt beef, which is essentially beef jerky. So the other day I made beef jerky, and so here we are adding it onto the chilaquiles, and I utilized a chuck roast, which makes them very nice and tender, and I use a nice rub, not just salt. So there you have it. So we're making the chilaquiles in the traditional way with beef on them. Is going to be some spring onion. Some of the recipes call for regular white onion, others call for red onion. Essentially, it's whatever onion you want. And then, of course, is queso crema. This is Mexican cream. It's kind of like sour cream. Let me show you the... Okay, you can get this at your local Wally World or anywhere else that has Latin or Hispanic foods. Gotta have that on there. And finally, cilantro. Now, please, people, pay attention to this. If you don't like cilantro, not a problem. Don't put it on there. But please do not substitute parsley for cilantro. Any law-abiding Mexican, Latino, Hispanic, if they see you putting parsley on your chilaquiles, they will choke you and poke your eyeballs out with their thumbs. So please don't do it. If you don't like cilantro, don't put it on. Do not substitute. All right, folks, so there you have it. Chilaquiles, however you want to say it. Deliciousness in a bowl. Thanks for watching, people. Bye-bye.